Hello again. I am back with this walk to answer the question, how do the themes I chose fit into the greater Old Testament storyline? Atonement was made through burnt offerings, grain offerings, peace offerings, sin offerings, and guilt offerings that is found in Leviticus chapters 1 through 7, instead of people being sacrificed. Atonement was for sinful people in need of a solution to their sin and to wipe away what they offended God with. Yet they could not stop sinning against God. So the atonement had to be made time and time again, and the cycle of sin and forgiveness never ceased. Atonement is the relationship between the sacrifices and salvation. Atonement fits into the salvation in the Old Testament as it was a way for the nation of Israel to ask God to cleanse them and ask Him for forgiveness of what they had done wrong. Atonement is an Old Testament idea that transitions straight through the New Testament. Yahweh calls His people to holiness so that they might reflect Him in covenant. As we see in Genesis 12 through 25, God chose Abraham and Sarah as a prime example of holiness. As a nation came from them, which you come across in the book of Exodus, known as Israel. God's holiness gives us the clearest frame of reference for human corruption and dysfunction across Scripture. And we see that in the book of Exodus, especially chapters 13 through 40 with Moses and the Israelites. Holiness is a central marker of the fundamental divide between God and the sinful human creature, most especially in their fallen condition, but also in the redeemed state entirely dependent upon God for any holiness that might reside in them. In Exodus 20, the very first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me, is God calling His people into holiness with Him so that they can be set apart from those that are not of God, only to serve God Himself. For God set apart His people would be His way of eventually making it possible for all people to know Him and only to serve Him. Holiness fits into the salvation of the Old Testament as God is setting apart his people from those who aren't following God.